This is me. It was a couple of years back, so I think I'm better in that picture. So I will be talking about the art of not about annoying the developers, right? And how do you think we annoy the developers? How do you think we annoy the developers? We have a team
One of the ways we do that is by asking incorrect questions.
Yes, anybody would like to answer from dev team or any other team, non-technical like team?
Technical.
Okay. When they want to go for yes.
By giving too much of non-technical information that annoys a developer a lot. I had been to developer for my entire life, and just give me what I need for my development to be done, and not lot of technical details starting from the full form of some services provided by someone. I just need to because we are very short of time. Those who have done development, we don't have a very long life cycle, so we want to get it done. Just give me what I just need it to be completed, and then later on at some point of time I'll understand the base concept. So it is like we give our exam now, 2 days before studies and getting the 80 marks, and फिर कभी पढ़ेंगे जीवन में पूरे concept. So that's what probably any developer would expect.
Wonderful, wonderful, thank you. Before I go ahead, how many are technical writers here? Pure technical writers? Okay. How many are non-technical writers? Not from technical writing field? Devs? Not from technical writing field. So devs, marketing team, I just want to know. Okay. Thank you. How many of you know about APIs? So I'll give you 3 levels. Only heard about API but don't know about APIs. Okay. Heard about APIs, I know. API होते हैं ऐसा काम करते हैं, but don't know about documentation. How many of you? Okay. How many are good with documentation? API documentation. Wonderful. This session की जरूरत नहीं है. Okay. So the art of not annoying the developers is you create a great API document. So this is not for developers of your company, but the developers who are going to consume your APIs. Okay? And as Meera said, we don't want stories, right? So how many of you know that you are, when we heard about APIs, we were kind of, APIs, I'm talking to the technical writers right now. So we were really afraid of APIs, right? I don't know coding, how to do API documentation and all that. But see, APIs has been here like forever, actually now, right? So Salesforce, eBay, Amazon, they were the pioneers in giving XML APIs first, and now the world has shifted to actually REST APIs and GraphQLs and all those. Made our lives much easier, right? Especially technical writers. So, how many of you are really afraid of APIs in the sense that you know that my company has APIs, so I'm going to do API documentation? Is that it? Or there's more to it? Have you ever thought that you are using APIs when you are searching for something? You are using APIs when you are ordering food, you are using APIs when you are booking a cab, you are using when you are checking your account balance, you are using APIs when you are selling your shares, stocks, right? So you are using APIs day in and day out. But still we are a bit, technical writer, API documentation करना पड़ेगा हमें, code सीखना पड़ेगा. No, right? Just like you need to learn your feature before documenting. It's just that you need to know what APIs are and how they work. That's it. And there is nothing like coding. We don't develop that. We are not doing that, right? But we should know what developers are doing. Then only we can write, right? So APIs are everywhere. You you are ordering food. So every time when you go home today and you don't feel like cooking, if your food is already not cooked, then think whenever you are ordering Swiggy, Zomato, I am using an API. Okay? So there's nothing rocket science in APIs. Why APIs are not just in the last couple of months, actually AI has taken over, so we've forgotten a bit about APIs, but they'll be there. Okay? So technical writers will be there. Why? I'll tell you now. What makes the APIs great? Of course, you don't have to write the codes. You are integrating two apps, right? Say you're booking a cab. You see the maps. Google embedded maps into it through what? APIs, right? You are getting information from somewhere, you are using APIs. So anywhere, everywhere APIs are used. Platform independent. Your application is on using some technology, some languages, whatever. My application, my technology is on some application. Still we can connect, we can interchange, exchange information, we can embed each application into one another using APIs. It's that simple. And of course it upgrades fast. Yes? But if your APIs are documented, if it's not documented, does it even exist? No. It is just like if your features are not documented, it's up to you. You go and tell, hey, I have a feature, would you like to try this? Doesn't work these days, right? You need documentation. It's there, everything is there on the net. So similarly, we have a whole vertical of API documentation. Usually, it's not combined with your feature documentation, right? You have, generally all the companies will have another website which usually has some words such as docs.google, API.google, or probably developer. Some of these kind which separates your feature documentation from the developer documentation. And why I am saying developer documentation over there? Anybody can answer this? They are the consumers. Okay? So that's that. So if your first thing is you need to identify your audience. Just like we do that in our feature documentation. Who is our audience? Right? I have classified this into two broad categories. One are the decision makers and the others are the actual developers who are going to consume the APIs, a particular API, a particular method. Okay? But why the decision makers? Who comes first, decision makers or the developers? Okay, hands raised, developers. How many developers are the primary? First, who are the first audience, first look, who will take at your API website? Sorry? Developers? Really? One more thought. Who are the decision makers? If there is one map that needs to be embedded into your application, and there's another application that say suppose based on this, is the developer going to decide which is good? Right. So all the decision makers are the first one, right? So these are the people, the CEOs, the product managers, the software architects. I mean different names, but of course the business analysts, right? And what else? How about the budget? Right? If I have two applications, they are giving somewhat, but this is too costly and this is somewhat in my budget. Then अभी तो ये चल जाता है, बाकी का बाद में देखेंगे, right? So of course, so all these people, these business decision makers who are going to sit together और एक राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस होगा and then they will say we'll go for this application to be embedded into our application, right? उसके बाद वो डेवलपर्स को देंगे, जाओ API रेफरेंस से अपने इसमें embed करो, right? When the API developers, the developers who are actually working with these API reference documents, if they think no, this is start using this at a very granular level, that is where they won't stick to your application. Yeah. So that time you need to have a good documentation, right? So your documentation, again I divided into two parts, API overview part and API reference part. Okay? API overview part is exactly what are the concepts of your API, the product detailing, authorization authentication, then high-level overview or probably a process flow diagram. Okay? And API reference is your documenting every resource and method. So that API reference section is what the developers are going to look at, and API overview is all for the decision makers. Whether is this the kind of authorization authentication I need for my product, right? Security issue is a big issue. Then, so I do have this. So API reference will have, this is just a template which I've given over here, where an API reference should clearly mention these things. I have seen that when in a documentation a method is described, it's not described properly. Okay? So this is for the technical writers. Please see that every reference is described properly. See what your guidelines are, because what API documentation is minimalism at its best. You know, developers are see baat no bakas. You don't even get to write, please see the following parameters. No, you don't even write that also. Okay? So parameters table, that's all. You give an introductory session, give an introductory line or not, the developer is not bothered. Every parameter needs to be discussed properly, written properly. The API overview. Again, as I said, this is the section where the decision makers are looking at your documentation. Okay? Your throttling limits, status codes, prerequisites. Okay? Pricing, of course. Authorization, authentication, workflow, concepts. How it is going. So now I am building a website. I need a payment gateway. Right? So there's this Razorpay, then there's Stripe. I don't know what else I have to think of it. PayPal, right? I really need how it will solve my developer's problem when I'm. Secondly, do they give me that much of support? Yes, customer support is very important. And how can the developers use the API? So everything I will analyze first. Then I will tell my team, hey, go for Razorpay, or go for PayPal, or go for some XYZ payment gateway. Okay. So why are good API docs important? Tell me. Anybody would like to answer this first? Why are good API docs? Yes.
Reduce the time of developer implementation team a lot.
Yes. It's already there. I should have put a. But thank you. So good docs, faster development adoption, right? You are again integrating with another application. You are again exchanging information, whatever. Bad docs, support tickets, rages, memes, right? All that. So a smooth, well-documented API leads to happier developers, and happy devs are more likely to build, recommend, and stick with their product. So I am again coming to the word improved developer experience. So just as we always talk about user experience in our feature documentation, API documentation is all about developer experience. Okay? Yes. How to seduce developers with your API. So first thing, most part when you join a company and you are doing API documentation is where API reference endpoints. So it's not endpoint, it's empathy. You have to give your heart to that endpoint. Focus on the developer experience. That's exactly what we are doing right now. Highlight use cases, not the syntax. Better to go for some examples. Support onboarding and troubleshooting. So there are errors. Of course, there are client errors, there are server errors, the return status codes. Try troubleshooting. Try give them. Just don't say that the 404 page not found. Kya kare iske aage, right? So just give something. So recently, I'll give you an example. Recently, I am involved in a project in my company where we are looking at all the API return status, where earlier it's simply giving 500 internal server error, right? But what exactly the user doesn't know. There can be hundreds again why this internal server error is occurring. Okay? So then we found out we are finding out the root causes of each of these. If it is if it can be solved, we are giving more information about why this has occurred and how this can be eliminated. So it's a good thing. So earlier we did, just simply gave 500, there's 404 page not found, or whatever, bad request. But then what is a bad request? What is a bad request? If you give that kind of an information with the error, it would be a great documentation. Explain required optional forms. How many of you have come across when you are filling for some website, signing up in website? You give some information. Some are required, some are not. And you don't fill in the field which is not required, which is optional. But still it's not allowing you to go ahead. It happens so many times on government websites. Every time you think that it is optional, it gives you an error, all the fields should be filled. Okay, thank you for telling me after doing so much. You should have informed me earlier. So it is the same thing. Don't miss out on telling that what are the optional and what are the required fields. Avoid jargons. Minimalism at its best. Seedhi baat, no bakwas. Show request response formats. Always good JSON formats. Include multiple language snippets. Don't use personal information and try to test the API. I will very much stress on this point, don't use personal information. This happened with me in my previous company. That what happens when the developer tests, okay, and especially they develop, and when the QA people go through that testing, and suppose it's kind of you have to create your login. They have to put in the real number, real ID so that they get a message and then they can validate that. And then they send that kind of a request and response, JSON request and response to you. What happens? You just take it because you get it from the developer. उसमें लिखा हुआ है Pallavi Deshpande@oracle.com. Okay. I'll keep getting mails from all my stalkers. So don't do that. Okay. See that there is no personal information. Please go through the requests and responses. See, उनसे गलती हो सकती है developers से, but then we are writers and that's what we are here for. Okay. So I sent this back to the developer and said, don't use your personal information. Give me something else, some name. So what he did, he said that okay, he gave me an email ID simon@gmail.com. And I said, excuse me, there's some Simon in the world who has a Gmail, and then you can be sued for data privacy or something like that. So every company has, if you don't have, suggest to your managers or managers suggest to your team, make a style guide, what kind of personal information, like for example, Jane Doe is allowed, like Google has Jane Doe, John Doe, something like that. Yeah. So at abc.com, whatever is allowed, please make a checklist of that. Okay. So don't use personal information and don't use random phone numbers also. Since it's not my phone number, I will say 98123. developers and non-technical writers, you have to collaborate with us because अच्छा लगे ना लगे अब तो करना है boss ये. So writers plus developers plus PMs is equal to great dogs. Yay! Right? Yes. जल्दी खत्म कर दिया. Okay. So I do have yes, sorry, I'll take a couple of minutes.